Welcome to what is rapidly becoming the single most talked about story in the world of tennis right now. We are live, and we are diving deep into a moment that has quite literally sent shockwaves through the Australian sporting landscape and is currently trending #1 across social media platforms from Manila to Melbourne. If you've been anywhere near X, formerly known as Twitter, in the last 4 hours, you have seen it. You have likely watched it twice, 3 times, maybe 10 times. It is a video that the official Australian Open account dropped just a moment ago, and to say it has shocked Australia would be the understatement of the century. We are talking about Alexandra Eala, the Filipino sensation, the 20-year-old rising star who has been on the cusp of greatness for what feels like years now. But what we saw today, what the Australian Open just released, this is not just a tennis interview. This is a revelation. This is a raw, unfiltered, deeply emotional, and startlingly honest confession that has stopped the tennis world in its tracks. We are used to press conferences, ladies and gentlemen. We are used to the standard, media-trained answers. I played well. I need to focus on the next match. The crowd was great. We hear it every single day. But this video interview posted by the Australian Open is something entirely different. It is a moment of such profound vulnerability and unexpected intensity that has left commentators, fans, and even rival players absolutely stunned. The headline is "Whole Australia Shocked," and for once, the clickbait title is actually telling the truth. Let's set the scene before we break this down frame by frame. We are on the eve of the 2026 Australian Open. The energy in Melbourne Park is electric. The stars are here: Sabalenka, Swiatek, Goff, Sinner, Alcaraz. The practice courts are buzzing, but all eyes are suddenly fixed on a 20-year-old from the Philippines who just days ago suffered one of the most heartbreaking, devastating losses we have ever seen in the semifinals at Auckland. We all saw the images from last week. Alexandra Eala, tears streaming down her face, blowing a massive lead, a medical timeout for her hip, losing a match point, and crashing out a way that would break the spirit of a lesser athlete. We thought she was done. We thought the injury might keep her out of Melbourne. We thought she would be mentally shattered. And then, the Australian Open official X account posts this video. In this exclusive sit-down, which is racking up millions of views as I speak, Alexandra Eala doesn't just talk about tennis. She looks directly into the camera, eyes fierce, voice wavering but strong, and delivers a message that has silenced the critics and won over the hearts of the Australian public in a matter of seconds. She addresses the tears in Auckland. She addresses the injury rumors. And she makes a declaration about this Australian Open that is so bold, so shocking in its confidence and clarity, that it has redefined her narrative instantly. Why is Australia shocked? Because they expected a broken young girl. They expected a standard, "I'm just happy to be here" statement. Instead, they got a warrior. They got a young woman who, in perfect, eloquent English, dismantled the idea that she is an underdog and looked the Australian public in the eye and said, "I am not here to participate. I am here to suffer, and I am here to win." The reaction has been instantaneous. Australian tennis legends are reposting it. The Filipino community is in a frenzy. The betting markets are shifting. The Eala effect is in full swing. But what exactly did she say? What was the specific line that made the interviewer audibly gasp? Why is the Australian Open calling this the interview of the year before the tournament has even started? Tonight, we are not just reporting the news. We are analyzing the psychology, the context, and the massive implications of this viral moment. We are going to look at why this specific video has resonated so deeply with the Australian psyche, a nation that loves a battler, loves a fighter, but was unprepared for sheer intensity of Alexandra Eala. We will break down the Auckland heartbreak that fueled this fire. We will look at the technical aspects of her game that she claims she has changed in the last 72 hours. And we will ask the big question: is this the moment? Is this the catalyst that turns a promising junior champion into a Grand Slam contender? Buckle up. The Australian Open hasn't even hit the first serve yet, but the drama has already peaked. This is the story of the video that shook a continent. This is a deep dive. To truly understand why this video released today is so shocking, we have to rewind the clock just 7 days. You cannot appreciate the resurrection without understanding the death. And what happened to Alex Eala in Auckland last week was, metaphorically speaking, a death on the court. She was playing the ASB Classic. It's a traditional warm-up for the Australian Open. She was flying. She had fought her way to the semifinals. She was facing Sinew Wong. Eala was up. She was dominating. She had the lead. She had the match on her racket. She had match point. The Filipino crowd in New Zealand, and let me tell you, they traveled deep, was ready to explode. History was right there. A WTA final. And then the collapse. It wasn't just a loss. It was a trauma. We saw Eala's movement stiffen. We saw the medical trainer come out for that hip issue. We saw the tears, not just after the match, but during the match. It was painful to watch. She blew the lead. She lost a match point. She lost a match. The images of her crying on her bench, burying her face in her towel, went viral for the wrong reasons. It looked like a young player who wasn't ready for the moment. It looked like a physical breakdown. Critics were brutal. She doesn't have the stamina. She's mentally fragile. The hip is gone. She should withdraw from Melbourne. The narrative leading into this week was fear. The narrative was doubt. The Australian media, who pay close attention to the Asian swing, had basically written her off as a non-factor for the Australian Open. They expected her to perhaps withdraw, or to show up, collect a check, and lose in the first round. That is the backdrop. That is the atmosphere of doubt that surrounded her when she landed in Melbourne. Silence from her camp. No Instagram stories. No hype. Just silence. Until today. Then, at 9 a.m. this morning, the official Australian Open X account, formerly Twitter, posts a 4-minute and 30-second video with the caption, "Strength isn't about not crying. It's about what you do after the tears dry." Watch this. #IsOpen #Eala. Let's break down what happens in this video, because the cinematography and the content are striking. It's not a press conference room. It's shot courtside at Rod Laver Arena, but it's empty. Just the blue court, the empty seats, and Alex Eala sitting on a simple chair. The lighting is natural, slightly moody. She isn't wearing a cap. Her hair is pulled back. No makeup. She looks tired, but her eyes are piercing. The interviewer, an off-camera voice from the Australian Open media team, asks a simple opening question. "Alex, after Auckland, after the tears and the injury scare, many people thought you wouldn't be here. How are you feeling?" This is the moment. This is the hook. Most players would say, "Oh, I'm feeling better, recovering day by day." Alex Eala stares at the camera for a solid 5 seconds. Silence. Then she speaks, and her voice is lower than usual. It's grounded. She says, "I didn't come here to feel good. I came here to remember why I started. Auckland broke my heart. I won't lie to you. I cried for 2 days. I couldn't walk without pain. But when I looked at that tape, when I saw myself crying, I didn't see weakness. I saw how much I wanted it." Boom. That is the first shock. The honesty. She admits to crying for 2 days. She admits the pain. But then comes a pivot. The interviewer asks about the Australian crowd and the pressure. And this is a segment that has gone absolutely nuclear viral. Eala leans forward and says, "I heard people say I'm too emotional. I heard people say the Philippines is just happy to be represented. I want to change that. I am not a mascot. I am a competitor. This court, Rod Laver Arena, it doesn't care if I'm crying. It only cares if I can hit the ball one more time than the girl across the net. I told my team yesterday, I am willing to run until my legs fall off. I am willing to cry on every changeover if I have to. But I am not going home without a fight that this country will remember." The Australian public loves this. They love the mongrel, the grit. The video cuts to a montage of her training practice at Melbourne Park, and she is hitting the ball with ferocious power. The grunts are loud. The movement looks sharp. The hip seems fine. The video ends with her looking at the camera and saying, "Australia, you haven't seen my best yet, but you will." Now, why the hyperbolic title? Why is the whole of Australia shocked? 1. The cultural connection. Australia sees itself as the sporting capital of the Asia Pacific. They have a massive Filipino community. Yes, but the general Australian sports fan respects honesty above all else. They hate polished, PR-managed robots. They love Nick Kyrgios for his rawness, even if they hate his antics. They loved Ash Barty for her humility. Alex Eala just bridged that gap by admitting her vulnerability. I cried for 2 days, and then pairing it with extreme determination. I am willing to run until my legs fall off. She spoke the language of the Aussie battler. She shocked them because they saw her as a nice girl from the Philippines, a junior champion. Suddenly, they see a woman with a killer instinct. The tone shift is jarring and impressive. 2. The clarity of language. We have to be honest. There is often a misconception about international players and their ability to connect with the English-speaking Australian audience. Alex Eala speaks better English than most native speakers. Her articulation, her vocabulary, her poise, it shocks people who haven't followed her career closely. The comment section on the X post is full of Australians saying, "Wow, she speaks so well, and she has the aura of a future world number one." The charisma she displayed in this 4-minute clip rivals that of the biggest stars like Osaka or Raducanu. 3. The injury bluff. The shock is also tactical. The betting markets and analysts thought she was injured. The video shows her moving freely in practice bureau, spliced into the interview. The shock is she's not hurt. Or if she is, she's hiding it perfectly. This changes the entire complexion of her first-round matchup. Rivals who were planning to exploit her movement now have to rethink. Is she 100%? The video suggests she is 110% mentally, which is often more dangerous than SO. What does this mean for the tournament starting in 24 or 48 hours? This video puts a target on her back, but also creates a shield of crowd support. The Australian Open thrives on narratives. They need a storyline. With some of the big names always fluctuating in form, the Cinderella story of the girl who cried in Auckland and rose in Melbourne is marketing gold. That is why the official account posted it. They are building her up as a primetime feature. Expect her first-round match to be bumped up to a show court. Expect the stadium to be packed not just with Filipinos, but with Aussies who saw this video and thought, "I want to back that kid." But there is a danger here. We call it the viral curse. When you make a bold declaration, when you say, "You haven't seen my best yet," you have to deliver. If she goes out and loses 6-2 in the first round, this video becomes a meme. It becomes embarrassing. The stakes have been raised astronomically. By posting this, by allowing this narrative to take hold, Alex Eala has pushed all her chips into the center of the table. She is betting on herself. And that is the deep dive takeaway here. This is a transition of Alex Eala from prospect to pro. Prospects are happy to be there. Pros use the media to set the tone. Prospects hide their tears. Pros use their trauma as fuel. This interview was a masterclass in psychological warfare against her opponent, against her critics, and perhaps against her own doubts. We also have to look at her draw. If she survived the early rounds, this momentum, this shockwave of support, could carry her deep. We saw it with Emma Raducanu in New York. We saw it with Coco Gauff. When the public gets behind a teenager or a young adult with a story, magical things happen. The crowd noise in Melbourne is unique. It's loud, it's rowdy. Eala just invited them in. She just gave them permission to be part of her struggle. It's not just Australia. The video has been shared by major tennis outlets globally. The Tennis Channel, Eurosport, ESPN. The narrative is shifting from Eala the Filipino star to Eala the global tennis personality. In the Philippines, the reaction is predictable but intense. Pride. But there's also anxiety. They saw the pain in Auckland. They are praying this isn't a false dawn. But the neutral fans, the tennis purists, they are shocked by the maturity. To hear a 20-year-old articulate the balance between suffering and winning is rare. It echoes the mindset of Rafa and Nadal, which makes sense, given she trained at his academy. You can hear the Nadal influence in her words. To suffer is to compete. That is the Nadal DNA. And seeing it manifest in this young woman on the eve of the Happy Slam is the story of the day. We are witnessing a moment in real time, ladies and gentlemen, in the age of social media. Sports are no longer just about what happens between the white lines. They are about the stories we tell ourselves before the match even begins. The title of the news today was Whole Australia Shocked. And having analyzed this video, having looked at the context of her devastating loss in Auckland, and having listened to the steel in her voice, I can tell you that the shock is real. It is the shock of recognition. The Australian sporting public has recognized a fighter. They have recognized someone who refuses to stay down. Alex Eala could have come into this Australian Open quietly. She could have nursed her hip, played a quiet match on court 13, and gone home. No one would have blamed her. The path of least resistance was right there. But she chose the hard path. She sat down in front of that camera. She looked into the lens, and she exposed her soul. She risked embarrassment to promise greatness. She turned her vulnerability into a weapon. Whether she wins the title, reaches the second week, or loses in the first round, one thing has changed today. Alex Eala is no longer just a name on the draw sheet. She is the main character of day one. She has commanded the spotlight. She has demanded our attention. The Australian Open begins in earnest very soon. The balls will be hit. The scores will be recorded. But the psychological battle? Alex Eala has already won that today. She has turned the narrative of a broken girl into the dangerous warrior. And that, my friends, is why the whole of Australia is talking. We will be covering every single point of her journey here in Melbourne. If this interview is anything to go by, we are in for a roller coaster ride of emotion, grit, and perhaps, just perhaps, history in the making. Next step for you. If you want to understand the technical changes Alex Eala mentions in the video, specifically the adjustment to her serve and forehand grip that she worked on in the last 48 hours to protect her hip, I can break down the technical analysis of her practice footage next. Or, would you like a full preview of her potential path to the quarterfinals based on the current draw? Let me know, and we will keep this deep dive going. Good night, and let the games begin.